That's the picture of Professor Swaminathan. We should be greatly indebted for Swaminathan for all the translations and some of the stories that will come later on how he was instrumental in bringing in very many of Murugan's poetry to us today. Without him, we would have never seen them. We would have never understood what that meant. I love this picture. So this is Sarvadikari and Mother, taken seemingly before 1916. So I believe he took sannyas in 1917 or 18. So this must have been before that because he doesn't wear, the orange robe. So, Aksharamanamali. What can we say about this? There is so much. We could devote 3 hours on Aksharamanamali and that wouldn't be enough. I'll give you a few anecdotes, and we really want Evelyn to have mic at this point in time. Like, much of this is going to be her work. So Muruga is a great poet. If you look at the history of poets in Tamil, hands down, he would be one of the top poets ever existed. That ever existed in Tamil. Imagine, Tamil's been like at least 3,000 years according to researchers, and there are so many poets who wrote so many poems. And Muruga is at the highest caliber in that order.
Wow.
And how does Muruga come to Bhagavan? Muruga's father-in-law shows Aksharamanamali to Muruga. Muruga reads it, and he says, "This cannot be written by a normal human being." And that's it. He went. So that's the power of this poem. It's so beautiful. And so many of these devotees had wonderful time singing and dancing alongside with Bhagavan. So I'll point out a few anecdotes before we go to you, Evelyn. First, according to Arthur Osborne, this was written while Bhagavan was doing Giri Pradakshina. However, Bhagavan himself says that was written partly in Girivalam and partly in Virupaksha cave.
So, I read somewhere, please correct me if I am wrong. So, some of the devotees of Bhagavan wanted to, while going and begging around for alms, they wanted to have something to sing. So, is that the?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So another mic. So there is a poem, Samba Sadasiva, Samba Sadasiva. So this is Arunachala Siva, Arunachala, it's the same meter. So the reason was devotees of Bhagavan used to sing that Samba Sadasiva, go around, beg for alms. And another rival group or several rival groups learned this. So they would go and exhaust the food supply. And Bhagavan didn't care much for it, but then devotees asked Bhagavan to compose a new poem that will identify the group to be Bhagavan's devotees. Initial reaction of Bhagavan is there are enough poems, enough verses, there is no need for another one. But then this spontaneously came to him the next day, and then somebody took down, and we have the rest of the poetry. So, few anecdotal details. The first version, HML published the first book, and then Narayana Reddy published this later. As I said, this was written in Virupaksha cave and during Giri Pradakshina according to Bhagavan in day by day. That's HMR. I love this picture actually. I got this. There are so many wonderful faces. I'm not sure if you can see it. Bhagavan obviously sits in the middle. That's Perumal Swami, Kanda Swami, who built the Skanda Ashram. And
Parni Swami.
that's Parni Swami.
No, that's Ayya Swami.
No,
Mother's
Mother's left is Parni Swami. No, this is Narayana Reddy.
Mother's right.
Mother's right.
Yeah, that's Parni Swami. This is Narayana Reddy. And that's C.K. Subramanya Sastri. And this is the young Sir Prakasham Pillai. And this, I don't know who that is. We could identify that. This, what's that?
Ishwara Swami, I think.
Is it Ishwara Swami? Is
No,
this?
Okay, yeah.
That's the. Yeah.
I remember this picture. So I think the one on the left is Ayya Swami.
This one?
That one.
No, the standing on the. Yeah.
This is Ayasami, yes. Ayasami, Narayana Reddyar, Iswara Swami, Bani Swami, Sivaprakasam Pillai, and C.K. Subramanian Sastry and his daughter. And this left, I don't know who that is, seemed like an old devotee at the time. This must have been taken before Skandashram was built, so this must be during Bhagavan's Virupaksha cave days. So this is Mr. and Mrs. Osborne. So this is Bhagavan's handwriting of Aksharamanamali. One of the things you would see in this writing, obviously Bhagavan writes each sentence in Tamil, and every printed book on Aksharamanamali would have this. At the end of each sentence, Bhagavan would write Arunachala Siva as refrain to be repeated. And of course, most of the ashram singings and the evening parayanas don't use that. That was sung that way during Bhagavan's Mahasamadhi, and only on April 14th in ashrama, they sing the Arunachala Siva refrain after every sentence. If you do a bit of a math, if you sing the way that Bhagavan suggested this to be sung, you would repeat the word Arunachala 984 times for every singing of one version. Obviously, it's going to take an hour, not 22 minutes, but it's so beautiful and exquisite, and the explicit instruction by Bhagavan is to do that. So, Swami, do you want to at least sing the first 3 lines of how this would be?
Yeah, the other mic.
I can use this. I can use this.
Basically, you just sing all the lines in the same tune as the first line, which is not what we do. The tunes change every other line. So I guess. Arunachalamena ahame ninaipavar ahatai veralupai Arunachala Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Arag Sundaram Pol Ahamum Niyumutra Bhinnamayirupom Arunachala Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Aham Buhuntirtun Ahaguhai Sirayai Amarvitaden Kol Arunachala Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala Shiva Arunachala. And it goes on like that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, but it'll be great to at least before the retreat's over.
You should do that tonight.
You can do it tonight.
What's that?
We start at 11.
1 hour. 11 from
It's not 11.
Yeah. You have to.
We will do it this time. All right. Oh, yeah. So before we go there, one of the things about this poetry, and one of the reasons why Muruga was so attracted to this, every line of Aksharamanamali has layers and layers and layers of meaning. In fact, there is a day-by-day reference where G.V. Subramanian asks Bhagavan, Bhagavan, there are so many meanings for this. Bhagavan looks at him and says, you think over and I'll also think over. I didn't write, I wrote what came to me. I didn't write with meaning in mind. So let's just take this one sentence. Araga Sundaram Pol Agamam Niyamutra Bhinnamayirupom Arunachala. Right? We sing this all the time. It's sort of second nature to us. But just let's take the first 2 words of this, Araga Sundaram. Right? There are layers of meaning as you read this to understand this. The first one is Araga Sundaram. Aragamar and Sundaram Ayya. So it's like my father and mother united, Arunachala, you and I be united. Right? Second meaning, Araga in Tamil is beauty. Sundaram in Sanskrit is beauty. So the beauty, whichever language you say, rose by any name smells the same type analogy. It's the same. So therefore, let's be together like that. It's undifferentiated. The third meaning is Sundaram in Tamil means red.
Right.
Red. The color red. So, red mountain. Aragu Sundaram, you're a beautiful red mountain. You have a singular form. Like that, you and I be one. Aragu Sundaram. Sundaram also means Shiva. In fact, there is a letters by Suri Nagama called Shivam Sundaram, right? In which the word Sundaram is explicitly defined as Lord Shiva. So Aragu Sundaram means you are Lord Shiva, the mountain. Let you and I be one, like how Shiva is one. Right? You keep doing this, just those two words, there will be layers of meaning just comes and hits you. And ahamum niyam, that's the second phrase. Aham means I, you means you, ni means you and I. So that's a very dualistic way of saying you and I be together. That's the most common meaning you read in books. Ahamum niyam means inside of me, you.
Me,
Right?
you inside aham.
Aham, you are inside me. Ahamum niyam also means inside you. Ahamum niyam. So there's no differentiation at this point in time. So just that two lines, you can just read, and the combination of this is just, amazing. And that's just the first line. So there are 108 lines. We're not going to do all of that. Evelyn.
Yes, sir.
So, so this is your diary from 1983. So this is what Ramaswamy Pillai had spoken to you about Aksharamanamali.
Sorry. Oh, yes, I remember this. Is this on?
It's on, yeah.
Yeah, so we were going around the hill. So Ramaswamy told us at the preceding culvert, Bhagavan had composed the verse of Arunachala Aksharamanamali, unless thou savest me, I shall melt away in tears of anguish, O Arunachala. Bhagavan told him that at that time, a great flood of tears actually poured forth from his eyes. We'd be so carefree with Bhagavan, Ramaswamy continued. We'd be singing and dancing. Really? I asked. Oh, yes, we had a hell of it, he exclaimed. That was really
One
true.
more for you.
That's classic Ramaswamy. And there he is.
The next one,
The whole thing.
where Bhagavan's the American.
We began to recite the Aksharamanamali together, but right in the invocation, Kunju Swami stopped and said, Bhagavan has written, extend to me your hand of grace. One with Arunachala, he addressed the mountain as his equal. This is most rare. In virtually all devotional hymns, the invocation is a prayer to God for his grace. However, Bhagavan wrote, extend to me your hand. Bhagavan was a real American. Keep going.
Yes, please.
When we came to the first verse, Kunju Swami paused to exclaim, thou dost root out the ego of those who meditate on thee in the heart, O Arunachala. All of Bhagavan's teaching is contained in this first verse. Our singing continued as one voice in an ecstatic mood as the ox cart bumped down the dirt road toward Adi Anamali. Sri Arunachala glowed in the light of dusk. The road was completely deserted, and we were free to let our praise of Arunachala rise from the heart. Approaching the town, we stopped singing and passed quietly through the village. There is no hymn like Aksharamanamali, Kunju Swami said. Bhagavan has compared it to the Vedas. Generally, the Vedas are listened to for the vibration of the sound. Aksharamanamali is similar. In this hymn, we press our demands on Arunachala. We are on familiar terms with Arun. Bhagavan wrote the hymn as a woman to a man. Arun, see how clever he is. In the end, he says, although I have exposed you, you are my Lord. You must be gracious and accept me.
வெளிவிட்டேன் உன் செயல் வெடித்திடாது வெளிவிட்டனை காட் அருணாச்சலம்.
When was this album?
1983.
83. That was the ox cart production.
Oxford production. I wonder who's this, Evelyn?
Evelyn.
Yeah. Oh my
God.
That was
Oh,
a
wow.
happy birthday.
And look at that. I don't know if he's receiving or giving it. He's giving it, yeah?
He must be receiving.
Usually when in the earlier days, whenever Dennis was there, and they had a tradition that a book would be, when a book was published, it would actually be brought to Bhagavan Samadhi, and it will be first released to Bhagavan. In that sense, it will be put in front of Sri Bhagavan, and then the president will give first copy out to some known people like, Kunju Swami or somebody. And if Dennis happened to be there, he would always be one of those distinguished people to get the first copy of the new edition of the book. So that's probably what he's receiving there.
Thank you.
Oh.
So, I thought we're now entering the real, sort of the meat of the presentation. Time flies. In a very unique way, Bhagavan has actually given us a direct assurance about three things. Who he is, why he came to the world, and what would he assure us. Years later, when Major Chadwick spoke to Bhagavan about Guru, Bhagavan had given a similar assurance, but in a sort of a, do you need me to give you a sort of written agreement or stamp paper or something like that? But in here, there's not even a second-hand view. This is a direct poem. This is not a poem that's sort of usually well published, so I thought it'd be sort of good to spend some time on this. So this is called Ramana Thirupugar. So Bhagavan had the habit of writing poems for other devotees who weren't endowed with poetic abilities. He wrote one such poem for Perumal Swami around 1915. So the poem that he wrote resembled Thirupugar, which is a collection of works by Arunagirinatha, who became the parrots in your movie yesterday. Arunagirinatha was a saint who lived in 1500s. And Thirupugar is known for a tongue-twisting sort of verse flow. It is not easy to read Thirupugar, or it's not easy to even recite Thirupugar. It takes a lot of training for somebody to recite Thirupugar. So Bhagavan had used the same meter to compose this verse. And later, in 1936, this verse was shown as a key witness in the court case that Perumal Swami brought against Bhagavan. Again, everything is Bhagavan's play, so I'm sure there is a reason why this was used as a witness, only for Bhagavan to assure again that is true. So let's go to the verse. So this is 8 words per line, so there are 4 lines, therefore there are 32 words in this. I'll try reading the Tamil version and then we can go to the English meaning. அஞ்சலன அடியார் குறை அகற்ற திருச்சுழியில் அழகனை சுந்தரன் அருள அவனிதனல் வந்தே தஞ்சமென தாழுமவர் தம்பினை சூழ் தடிந்து தன் பதத்தை தந்தருள பன்னிருகை தாங்கி விஞ்சுமன கஞ்சுமையின் மீதமந்த ஞான வியோகம் வேலோச்சி விளையாடல் புரிவோன் அஞ்சு நடக்கி ஆறுமுகமான பெருமான அருணமலை ரமணன அருளும் பெருமானே. So this is beautiful because not only the poetic meter and the sort of the flow in which Bhagavan has written it, but there are three statements that Bhagavan makes unmistakably. First one, for those devotees who surrender to remove their defects, Tiruchuli Arhamal and Sundaram gave birth to their son. So he established the reason why he was born. Second, for the surrendered, i.e. the surrendered devotees, he removes their karma and shows the path of self. I've never seen Bhagavan say this in as categorical statement as here as anywhere else. And third, the exalted state of jnana shown by the one who sits in the peacock holding a veil. So this is Muruga. Lord Muruga sits in peacock and holds this veil. And he actually explicitly makes the reference. He controlled all five senses, and having 6 heads, Aksharamanamali is none other than Subramanya himself.
Wow.
Right? There is unmistakable, there is no poetic subtlety here. It's very direct, straight meaning. And so, as a result, Perumal Swami uses this as an evidence to prove Bhagavan is not a human, but Lord Subramanya. So this was in talk 291. So read the last question. But do you not agree with the statement made in it? Where the question was about, Bhagavan, you wrote in your handwriting, you are Lord Subramanya himself. Bhagavan doesn't deny that. He just simply says, in the same way as an idol is praised as Subramanya. So Rohit, there you go. That's your answer. I actually thought, like, of all the poems, this poem doesn't get enough sort of singing time, and we should probably start, singing, reciting this, because it's such an exquisite poetry, and the meaning is so deep and direct. There is just no way to sort of misunderstand this in any other poetic language. So that's Perumal Swami and Bhagavan. Appalapattu, we sang yesterday. This is an amazing poem where Bhagavan's mother, evidently this happened in Virupaksha cave, not in Skandashram, was trying to make puppets, which is a very elongated process.
What are puppets?
Puppets is-
Edible thing, papad. That is an edible thing.
If you
It
ever
should
go
serve
to
it
an
made
Indian
with
restaurant,
lentils,
the first
and
thing
it is
they
rolled
do
and
is
dried in the sun.
Okay.
If you go to an Indian restaurant, they usually serve this at the very beginning. It's like a thin layer of fried.
It's like potato chip, but
Potato
much
chip,
longer,
much
bigger,
longer.
rounder, and you just dip into something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like very crackery.
So again, this is one of those poems where there is a sort of a superficial meaning, where Bhagavan actually explains how to make puppet. Right? And that meaning is not written by anybody. The translation doesn't give that meaning. So if you're so interested in how to make puppets, you should actually read the translation of it.
Will this fall under the category of Iratoram Moridal?
Yeah, it is. It's very similar to this. I was about to say that. So there is a poet in Tamil in 15th century called Karamega Pulavar. He was the expert in writing a poetry. On a superficial level, it will mean something. Vengayam Sukhanal Vendayatala. So there's like these famous sayings. If you just see, it'll be like a very superficial meaning. If you just slightly rearrange the words, it means completely different and deeper meanings. So Bhagavan actually used that technique to write this poem. So again, we're not going to sing because we sang yesterday evening. There are 4 stanzas in this, but the puppet he wants us to take is the puppet of ego and fry it to become one with the self. and eat that. So this is the meaning by Professor K. Swaminathan. We're not going to talk about the meaning today, but it's a very deep meaning. As far as I'm aware, this poem was not translated in English during Bhagwan's time. This was translated later. So there is some room for interpretation in this translation. There are only 2 works that Bhagwan composed because of his inner urge. Every other work that you've seen, Bhagwan has composed it out of grace for somebody, out of compassion for somebody's request. There are only 2 works. First is Padigam, second is Ashtakam. One day when Bhagwan woke up, the word Karanayalane kept coming to him, Karanayalane Andani. And this is the reference from day by day. So he kept ignoring it. Like, what use have I for this? And then the phrase wouldn't go out of his vocabulary, so he ended up writing the first poem the first day. The next day, the other set of words appeared, so he wrote the second poem. So in Padigam, he wrote 9 days, every day 1 poem, and the 10th day, he wrote the last 2. That's how it became the 11 poems that it was. And then the same with Ashtakam, where he composed the first 6, and the last 2 were composed right before it went to print, because he had to finish the Ashtakam, the 8 poems. And these are all the works that were done during his Virupaksha cave days and Skandarshan days, but mostly in Virupaksha days. Again, we wouldn't have time to go into the details of these particular poems, but most of these poems were composed during his Giri Pradakshina. Bhagavan would go to Giri Pradakshina, somebody, either Perumal Swami or Padiswami, will bring the notebook, and if there's a poem that comes in, they just copy it down, and when they come back, they will write it down in the master notebook. So for the reference, I've kept the actual poems in this presentation as well for continuity, but I'm going to skip over given the time constraints. So this is Ashtakam. The beauty about Ashtakam is it's highly biographical. Right? The very first poem, he actually says, there is this guy, a small child, and child didn't know anything about Arunachala, and child thought Arunachala is some big thing in some other world, but some learned man says Arunachala is nothing but Thiruvannamalai, and then based on that, I come and I see this beautiful mountain, which is nothing but self. So that's literally the loose translation of the first poem. And the poetic meter is NC Vritam, 8 words per line. And Vritams are very difficult to write. So Bhagavan's use of language and how he sort of uses multiple words and multiple minor words to form a single word is just beautiful. There are not too many poets in the history of Tamil poem have written poems like this. So and then Arunachala Navamani Malai. So this is, the 4th of the Pancharatnams. So this has a beautiful explanation. This goes to Phil, your talk yesterday. A Dikshidhar, it's a family-owned temple in Chidambaram, comes and visits Bhagavan and persists Bhagavan to take a visit to Chidambaram because that's where Nataraja is there and Bhagavan should clearly come and visit Chidambaram. Bhagavan doesn't say anything that day. Next day he writes the very first verse, Achalane Ayinam Achuvaitanu. And the meaning is very beautiful for this. I'll just read it. Although Shiva is motionless, he dances before the Mother Shakti, who stands still in the court of Chidambaram. So he says Shiva dances in the court of Shakti in Chidambaram. But know that in Arunachala, he stands in his towering grandeur, and she withdraws there into his unmoving self.
Do you have a graphic of that, like in English?
I will send it to you. It's in the notes. But the translation exists by Professor Swaminathan for this, and that was verified by Bhagavan. So Bhagavan proofread that.
Would you mind repeating it again? I just didn't catch the second part.
Yeah, please.
So although Shiva is motionless, he dances before Mother Shakti, who stands still in the court of Chidambaram. So in Chidambaram, Shakti stands still, Shiva dances cosmically.
In the court of?
In the court.
Oh, court. Okay.
So they call it Tiruchabai, which is like the beautiful courtyard where if you go to Chidambaram temple, you would see the Naraja, and then there's a big court where people sit and sing. But know that in Arunachala, he stands in his towering grandeur, and she withdraws there into his unmoving self. So Shakti abides in Shiva in Arunachala, and therefore he just says, Shiva's right here.
Wow.
So for this presentation, we didn't include the Pancharatnam, because that's technically a Sanskrit work written, translated to Tamil later. So that's for next year's Tampa retreat. So, I don't know, I'm going to be guided by you. It's 11:30. There are a set of slides that describe Tamil poetry. Do you want me to spend 10 minutes, or do you want me to skip over and go to the rest of the...
No, please go.
Okay.
No, skip.
So we're going to take a detour. So we spoke about Benba, we spoke about Tamil poetry, and so what is it? Like, why is it hard? Why is Tamil the poetic language that everybody claims it to be? And why everybody says Tamil is the most antiquated, sort of, not in a bad way, but it's the oldest sort of language in the world where the most amount of poetry has been composed. And Bhagavan speaks a lot about the grammatical nature of Tamil, and there are many references in Day by Day as well as in talks. So there are 5 things that are important when you compose poetry in Tamil. The first and foremost, you don't use mind to compose poetry in Tamil. So in fact, in ancient days, when you compose poems in Tamil, you go to the nearest river. So if you're in Madurai, you go to Vaigai River. If you're in Tanjavur, you go to the Kaveri River. You take all the poems you did, throw it in the water. And the river decides which one you wrote, or which one came from the self.
Wow.
The one that you wrote will be swept away. Whatever comes back is a poetry that is truly best out by Lord himself. So poetry in Tamil is used for the purpose of self-realization.
This was really done, they write and they...
Yeah, Kambaramayana is that, most of the...
Even the Jnana Sambandha was
really
talking
true,
about.
that's really true. I said, I'm fine.
Keep it close to
Yeah, everything is fine. Yeah.
So there is this famous thing about Vattakutra and Kambar, both wrote Ramayana, both threw it in the water. Kambar's Ramayana came back, Vattakutra's didn't come back. Like these are all legends, but it's a fact. There are evidences to point that people did this. It's a practice.
Even Jnana Sambandha and the Jains, they
Yes.
both compose and they put it in the river.
Oh, yeah.
And Jnana Sambandha actually doesn't even come back. It actually goes upstream.
Yeah.
A palm leaf goes upstream on the river, and so that becomes the
truth.
The truth, so to speak.
And actually in Abhirami Andadi, where he was put against the fire, and he composes the fire.
And then he throws the...
Yeah.
So these
So-
are written on palm leaves.
Palm leaves, yeah. So if you write in palm leaf, you actually want to, if you try this river here, take a palm leaf and write on something and throw it. 99% of the time it'll actually sink or be swept away, because the water current will be so fast, it'll be swept away or sinking. The fact it'll come against the current to the shore and sit proves the quality of poetry. And the second thing about Tamil poetry is that when you write, people rarely self-publish it. And that's because, with a simple belief, if this came from self, it will stand the test of the time. So that's why you have these thousands and thousands of poetry that have seen light today purely through oral traditions. So what are the 5 things that are important about Tamil? The first is Chandam, which is the meter in which you write. The second one is the meaning. What does your poetry say? Third, the poetic words that you can use. You can't use random words in Tamil, because I'll explain what that means. There are alternates. It's like the equivalent of counterpoints in Western music. For every word here, there must be an equal word on the other side. And it's highly mathematical in structure, so you can't have a random word inserted somewhere. And that's why there are so many God's names, because if you're writing a piece of poem about a temple, you can't use the same name to fit into the poetic language. And then the number of words per line and number of syllables per word matter. So the poetic dictionary calls for a specific number of words. And the ideas cannot be repeating. Any poem that you write, remember, this is all coming directly from self. You don't sit and count the syllables and words. The words come out, the words will automatically fit the meter. You don't choose the meter chooses itself.
So in Sanskrit there's the word Shruti, so it's Shruti, right?
Yeah, it's Shruti, right? So for today's conversation, I'm going to take Venba as a meter. Venba is the hardest meter one would have to compose, and most of Bhagavan's compositions happen to be in Venba meter. In fact, the last 100 years, Venba came to sort of the mainstream culture because of the work by Bhagavan and Muruga. Prior to that, the Venba has died down because of the very difficult meter it poses and challenges. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but remember, the number of words determine the type of Venba you're writing. The easiest Venba, or the simplest form, is Kural, where there are 7 words. There are 4 words in the first line and 3 words in the second line. Tirukkural is the most obvious example. It seems very simple that you write 7 lines, but you need to convey a non-repeating idea in 7 words with the constraints of the grammar I'm about to explain. So then you have 3-line Venba called Sindhiyal Venba, then 4-line Venba called Nerise Venba, which is what most of Bhagavan's works had been, Guruvachar Kove and Ulladu Narpadu, all in that Venba. And then Bhaktrodi Venba is up to 12 lines, and the last one is Innisekali Venba, which is ad infinitum. You can keep writing forever. And there are very few works that exist in the Innisekali Venba, because it's not only very difficult to compose, but you have to keep going on until your verse is over. It's one single verse that explains the whole story. The very first part of Muruganar's work is in this meter, which is called Ramana Puranam, and which is modeled after Thiruvachakam, which is Siva Puranam. So, what are the Venba rules? Here comes. Every syllable can be classified into 3 different types: short, full, or half. Right? So every syllable in Tamil can be classified only those 3: short, full, or half. For those of you in Tamil, it's if you have a letter after which another letter with a dot against it, that counts as short. It's 1 syllable. It's a short syllable. If you have 2 kuril, 2 shorts coming together, that makes it a long syllable. Nirai. And then anything that ends with a ku is a half measure. Okay? Simple. Now here comes the rules. Each line in Venba has only 4 words. Each word will either have 2 syllables or 3 syllables. With me so far? Remember, a syllable can be short, full, or half. A word can have either 2 syllables or 3 syllables. You cannot have 4-syllable words, and you cannot have 1-syllable words. Okay? And the 2-syllable words can have any combination. You can have short, 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 full, because they are syllables. Full, short, or full, full. But the 3-syllable words must end only with a short syllable. Okay? That's not even the complex bit. Now comes the word combinations. You can't write any word where you choose. If you have a 2-syllable word which ends with a full syllable, the next word must start with a short syllable. And if you have a 2-letter word that ends with a short syllable, the next word must begin with a full syllable word. So it's the opposite. So 2-letter word ends in S, the next letter starts with F. Remember, there is a 3-syllable words. The 3-syllable words, as we know, always ends with S in Venba. The next word must begin with S, short syllable. Okay? And the final word of every Venba will always be either a S or F or a single syllable or a 1.5 syllable, ST or FT. Right? Are we there somewhere? We lose you? Right. So we're going to take an example. We're going to take an example. Sorry.
No quizzes.
No quizzes, yes. Look, the point of this is not, we're not going to become Venba writers at the end of this presentation. That's not the whole. But the idea is to sort of give, I'm sorry, it can be. But the idea is to sort of give the complexity of what we're dealing with and kind of proves to say every one of these poems has a meter, and you can't just sit down and say, I'm going to write this poetry and I'm going to kind of figure out the words, because the rules, if you start to write that poetry with your mind and start writing it, you'll probably be stuck with the third word and then you're stuck, because the words wouldn't come, right? It has to have a flow. And that's the purpose of Tamil poetry. You just need to let it go, abide, it should flow. And that's the only way to write poetry in Tamil. And Bhagavan actually emphasizes in multiple places. So I took the simplest Tirukkural, Aksharamanamali Ezhuthellam Adi Bhagavan Mudattrai Ulagu, and I just put this in the form I said. The first word is full short. That's the first word, full short syllable, 2-letter. The second one is full short because the first one ends with S, the next one must begin with F. The third one is FSS. It's a 3-syllable word. It's a full short short. The fourth is short short. So if you read this, it's simply full short, full short, full short short, short short, full short, short full, full half.
So how will it sound in Tamil when you read it?
Yeah. So
read it in Tamil?
Nire neer, nire neer, nire neer neer, neer neer, nire neer, neer nirai, niraiku.
No, I mean the poetry part, yes.
Agara mudala ezhuthellam Adi Bhagavan Mudattrai Ulagu.
Say slower.
Agara mudala ezhuthellam Adi Bhagavan Mudattrai Ulagu.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So, we are still in the basics. We haven't got to the real complex part yet. This just gives you the meter.
But this seems like something that if you grow up in that culture and you instinctively have the language and listen to the language, might not be so difficult, right? Because there's a song in it. It's like a song pattern.
Yes. This is one of the infinite patterns you can compose. We have taken the simplest possible in the simplest possible meter, and that's this.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know how you could do this if you weren't a native
Oh,
Tamil speaker.
You have to be proficient first of all,
Right.
but that's not a sufficient condition, it's a necessary condition.
Academic is not the only thing.
Right.
Actually, a lot of native Tamil speakers struggle in Tamil grammar. That's
Because
the toughest subject in school. So,
including
We avoid that.
we avoid
They're very tough.
So and here is the rhyming part. This is the word. This is where the word. So the first word of every line, the second letter must be the same. Are you with me? Every line, the first word's second letter must be the same. Okay. Within a line, the first word and the third word must have the same first letter. I'm going to take the example now. So you see the highlighted portion in yellow. So this is, by the way, is Ulladanarpa, the 11th verse. So you see the word yellow, re. You see the re everywhere?
Yeah.
That's identical. That's called Idigai. It's the counterpoint. Okay. So in Tamil, the second letter of a word is like the life. Right? Not the first letter. The second letter is the life. It is the sort of the thing that holds the word together.
In English, we talk about rhyming words, right? How it rhymes at the end always, right? This is the equivalent of rhyming, but it comes as the second letter.
Second letter for the every line. But within a line, you see the underline, the bolded ones. You see ah, yeah. The first letter must be identical, and right. So now you have the meaning, you have the grammar, the FSS bit, Now you have the rhyming words. At which point we give up. Right?
Can you read it with the rhyme? It will be nice to where such that you can feel the rhyme.
So we can feel it.
அறியாமை விட்டறிவின் ஆர் அறிவு விட்டவ் அறியாமை இன்றாகும் அந்த அறிவும் அறியாமையும் ஆர்க்கென்றம் முதலாம் தன்னை அறியும் அறிவே அறிவு.
So it's like a mnemonic device.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And given that you can't have any, so if it's a full, you should have a full. If it's a short, you have a short. Now you say you want to call Lord Ishvara somewhere in the middle. You can't just call by the name you had because that will not rhyme or it will not fit the grammar. So many of these poets, they don't think, right? I mean, they just keep writing this many times. If you are a poet of any word, you write and then you check the grammar. You don't check the grammar before you write. It doesn't work that way. And if you ever try trying to fit a grammar, you should take from a novice poet, you get stuck in the third word and you'll be stuck.
But this allows it to be memorized much easier.
Much easier, exactly.
Yeah, it's a pattern.
Interestingly, the same thing is there in the language we studied, Kannada.
Yes.
And I think the 21st or something of Ullar Narpadu, the same thing what you said is Bhagavan also refers to a great saint 800 years back, is Allama Prabhu. So he also says that about what you said, the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And in fact, Venba meter is not native to any other language except Tamil. Bhagavan's the first to export this meter to Sanskrit, Telugu, Malayalam. I'm not sure about Kannada, but Telugu and Malayalam and Sanskrit, Bhagavan surely wrote Venba meter.
Huh?
The same exact rule applied in that local language.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So here Bhagavan actually explains, he actually, I'll read it. Bhagavan continued, Venba is very difficult to make, even more difficult than the Arya Virtams in Sanskrit, as Kavyakanta himself had to admit once to me. So if Kavyakanta finds something difficult, so you know how difficult he is. And he is a person who can write extempore poem in Sanskrit at will. Ganapati, yeah.
I have a different experience. I'll share that later. I don't want to change.
Sure. So like with every other poetry by Bhagavan, Bhagavan took all these complex rules, made a poem in itself. So this is Bhagavan's version of how to write Tamil poetry. It's a poem itself. Bhagavan does it all the time. When he gets a recipe, he would immediately compose a poem on it. We will see some of that time permitting later. So I'm going to move on this subject. My only idea of sort of talking about this is to give you a glimpse of what Tamil poetry is all about and why people extol the virtues of Tamil poetry. And what we have done is taken the simplest Venba meter is what we've seen. Now we can actually do complex versions and variances. You can literally have infinite forms of poetry written based on the rules that allow you to do it. So this, I found this in the Day by Day. Bhagavan actually says, he gives a discourse. It says, Bhagavan then fell into a discourse on various meters and told us something about Tamil prosody and how there are 6 parts in Tamil poetry. Ezhuthu, Asai, Seer, Thalai, Adi, Thodai. Bhagavan continued, Venba is very difficult to make, even more difficult than Aryavartams in Sanskrit. And here it is. Bhagavan also warns, of course, all this is only spoiling one's peace of mind. When great effort is put forth to do all sorts of literary gymnastics, what is the result but loss of peace of mind? Sometimes the first seed in all 4 lines will appear to be the same word or words. But with great skill the words are split up differently in each line, the meanings would be found to be different. From this, Bhagavan discourages writing poetry because you feel like writing it. Bhagavan always encouraged writing poetry if it flowed through, which was the case with Muruga, which was the case with Sadhuvam and a number of other poets that visited Bhagavan, Kavyakanta, for example. If that faculty existed, Bhagavan encouraged and even sort of made corrections and sort of, gave pointers and prompted poets to write poems. But if somebody took a piece of paper and looked at somebody saying, I want to write a poetry, And Bhagavan's explicit instructions, don't do it, because it's going to kill your peace of mind. Beautiful picture of Kavi Kanta and Bhagavan. Moving on to the next subject. Given it was Bhagavan's birthday yesterday, in 1912, Vasudeva Shastri requested Bhagavan to write 2 poems, because that's the first year they celebrated Bhagavan's birth, Aradhana. Jayanti. Sorry. So I'm going to skip over the meaning on this given the time, but what Bhagavan emphasizes here is the birth is not a physical birth. Birth is to be born in self. That's real birth. So that's the import of these 2 poems. Again, now that you're experts in Venba, these are Venbas written by Bhagavan.
We are at 2 hours and we haven't yet come to Muruga.
Yeah.